Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Flash, and thank you for joining me for another Marvel Snap video. And yes, it is another week, and we have another new card coming into the game. This week, it is Malekith. So, come along with me on this journey here as we learn a little bit more about the character, learn a little bit about what they do, how they use a Marvel Snap, and have some fun along the way. Let's go. Malekith was a dark elf of Svartalheim. He was born the 13th son into Lady Mazaroth of the Black Bile clan, which were known as the Lords of the Wild Hunt for their use of war dogs. Eventually, his father, brothers, and uncles all died in the many wars the Dark Elves fought, led by Craw the Uncontrollable. His mother assured him he wouldn't have to die a soldier. However, during the 43rd Troll War, his mother sold him to the Undertaker elves of the Svartalheim southern swamps for food for the war dogs. As he was taken away, his mother told him she couldn't lose another son without gaining nothing, and that at least he wouldn't have to be a soldier. He was forced to work as a corpse burner in the war, burning the corpses of 3,000 fallen dark elves, some still alive, after each battle while leaving the empty corpses rot. One day, while burning corpses, he was captured by the trolls and kept with other prisoners. An elder prisoner asked him to find some meaty millipedes and cook them for him, so he could have the strength required to perform a magic trick. As Malekith obeyed, the elder revealed himself as a dark elf wizard, decimating the trolls with the trick and allowing them both to escape. In the following years, marked by wars against the light elves, then the dwarves, then terrorism against the gods, possibly centuries, Malekith became the wizard's apprentice, being the most natural spellcaster the wizard had ever seen, and eventually surpassing him as a wizard and even the better magician of his kind. Eventually, the wizard told him his training had been completed and that Malekith had to teach him his true purpose. He asked for his help to end the war, which shocked Malekith. The wizard felt that their people had suffered because of one senseless war after another, and that together they could reason with the king, unite their clan, and bring peace. He was convinced that since Malekith was forged in the tragedies of war, he would understand his reasoning. Malekith instead stabbed him, stating that he had been made by war and claiming that war forged the elves' souls and that as long as he lived, there would always be war. Stabbed multiple times, the wizard cast a spell at Malekith, making half of his face black, marking him so that everyone knew what he was before dying. Malekith traveled to his former home. As he revealed herself, Mazaroth tried to excuse herself for her wrongdoing. Remember, Mazaroth, his mother. But he had his mother fed to her dogs, thus taking the mantle of Lord of the Wild Hunt. And that's basically the foundational sort of history there for Malekith. Now, as far as his abilities and such go, right, he's a dark elf. He has all of the kind of abilities that come along with that, right? The superhuman strength, the speed, the stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, extended longevity, regenerative healing, right? But I did want to get into a little bit about one of his abilities, magical energy manipulation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that before we move on. Malekith can manipulate great amounts of mystical energy for a number of purposes. Malekith has been known to often use his mystical powers to alter his shape and appearance. He can even use this ability to transform himself into a mist-like substance, allowing him to fly through the air over great distances. He is also capable of using this same energy to teleport himself across great distances, including between dimensional barriers. Malekith can also generate powerful blasts of concussive energy for destructive purposes. It is also believed that Malekith can use this mystical energy to increase most, if not all, of his superhuman physical attributes temporarily. He has used it to increase his physical strength, and since he was believed to have been killed by curse after having his neck broken, It is believed that he used his knowledge of sorcery beforehand to increase the limits of his natural healing abilities and for the purpose of appearing to be dead. So yeah, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening here with Malekith. So that is the character in a nutshell, right? Aside from diving into deep history, but that's not necessary here. And that's some touch there about his abilities as well. Let's get into Malekith as a card in Marvel Snap. Hello, I'm back. Yes, so Malekith in Marvel Snap. Before we dive a little bit more into that and how I feel about the character, if you've appreciated things here up to this point and you like the lore, please hit that like button, subscribe, do all those things. It really goes a long way into helping us grow the channel here. So that being said, Malekith in Marvel Snap is a 4/6 with the on reveal. Add a 1, 2, or 3 cost card from your deck here, meaning that location that he's played. It reveals at the end of the game. Now, what we do know in fact is that whatever card he pulls, you will be able to see and have the knowledge of what card it is, while your opponent will not have that knowledge. Very similar to Invisible Woman, right? For example. So, first of all, there's some applications here. First, this card acts as a thinning for your deck, which is good. That's always been good. It's why we used to love old America Chavez, because it was a guarantee, right, to push all the other 11 cards to the forefront. It thins a card from your deck, but my only concern with this card is what are the 1, 2, or 3 cost cards that you really want here, right? I know some people have said things like, to give examples, like Silver Surfer, right? You wouldn't mind him pulling a Silver Surfer, and I get that, and you wouldn't mind him pulling like a Hazmat, for example, is another good card he could pull at the end, right? Something like even a Sage that reveals at the end is very good. My only issue is that you have to understand that Cosmo and Alioth are both very popular and like wildly played cards in Marvel Snap. They're very popular, they're very high play rate, they're in a lot of the best decks in the game. So while I think this card will be fun and will have some down the road application, it's narrow. It's going to require very specific deck building because you kind of just don't want any 1, 2, or 3 getting pulled, right? You don't want Iceman, right? That doesn't do anything for you. One of the cards that was showcased in the dev video, Cassandra Nova, that's not a good pull that reveals at the end of the game. It's not going to, that Cassandra Nova is going to be a very small Cassandra Nova, and it's not doing the thing it's not doing the secondary application thing that you want it to do. So this might work with the aforementioned cards, but again, Cosmo and Alioth is very problematic right now, and is, considering that this is a new card coming into the game, a lot of people are going to play it, they're going to play test. People are still playing Cosmo and Alioth. You just drop it in that lane specifically, and you're like, okay, now whatever it is that you're hoping to do, specifically it being Alioth, you kind of just, I know where your Malekith is, I'll just play my Alioth there, more than likely. So it's very hard for me to say what my well, actually no, it's not hard. I don't recommend that anybody, this isn't a card you need for your decks to accelerate anything that you're doing right now. Now again, I know a lot of people smarter than me, a lot of people who are better at deck building than me will find some very fun things for this to do. But for the average player, and maybe even the free-to-play player, etc., you don't need this card. This is a skip. So like, I don't, so if we're talking yeah or nah, right? This is a nah. This is a nah, you're good. We're gonna pass on this. I'm going to put Malekith into the C tier, as I did with Frigga. Might that change over time? Sure. I personally have been on record saying before that I think this card might need a buff to 4/7. Hell, Wiccan's a 4/7. Are you telling me that this card, that we think this card is stronger than Wiccan, that it needs to be a 4/6? I don't think so. Again, I'm a big fan. I'm all for the deck thinning. I get that. But then what? Then what? Are those 1, 2, or 3 cost cards gonna win you the game? What are the odds of that happening? as you can tell, I'm not in love with this card. I think it could be fun. I don't recommend this card for the average player. I'm a content creator. I'm gonna get this card. I'm gonna have this card. I'm gonna play test with this card. But to the average player, to the free-to-play player, this is a skip. It's a pass. It's a nah. Going into the C tier. So those are my thoughts on Malekith. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you think there's some super duper combo that you're like, oh, Flash, you're not seeing it. It's this, this, and this. Please, by all means, I love to have that conversation. Drop your thoughts down there in the comments, right? And that's it. That's it for Malekith. That's it for all of this. I will catch you guys next week for another one of these videos where we do some lore. We break down the new card. I give you my review, and that's it. That's this week's episode of Yeah or Nah. I am Flash. I will catch y'all next week. Peace.